This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo, and I'm here with my wife, Christy.
Hello, hello.
Well, Thanksgiving is over, and Christmas is on its way.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I loved Christmas when I was a kid. My dad went all out on Christmas, my dad and mom. But my dad, I got a great story. Actually, the story is that we put it in Blue Collar Famous, the pilot, about when Glenn Beckert, my dad, got us a Christmas tree from Marshall Fields.
With the ornaments.
Yeah, they went in there. My dad thought, okay, we'll go to the Christmas lot. He saw the display tree, loved the display tree, took a left turn in Old Orchard, went into the Marshall Fields and went up to the manager, said, I want that display tree. He's like, Ron, we can't give you. We got plenty of trees outside. No. What can I give you to give me that tree? And he worked it out, and it's a great scene in Blue Collar Famous, and it was funny. Him and Glenn, they put the tree with the ornaments, the fake snow, took it out of the display window, and brought it to the Sano family.
We'll have to ask your mom about that this
Christmas.
This Christmas when we go back. Yeah.
Oh, that was a great tree, and we actually got kind of the same tree for like a couple years in a row. Probably went back to Marshall Fields every time. It's out. Give me the display tree. But I guess that's the perks my dad got it sometimes going in there. But he always gave back. I'm sure the guy had tickets to many games that season, and I'm sure my dad paid for the tree. So, this episode is our last.
It's our last of the season.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, quite a journey this podcast has been.
And we're going to pick it up again next season.
In February. Right when spring training starts, we'll have new guests. It's going to be great, and we have a lot of stuff going on. We got a couple of projects. We're hoping Blue Collar Famous gets going. We also have a film project that we're going to do a teaser for that we look forward to. So we'll have that part of our podcast as we move forward in the industry while interviewing other people in the industry and baseball players in my dad's era and so forth. And maybe we'll get some of the 84 Cubs too and guys like that. So, but we have part 2 of Peter Conti. Excellent. Love that man. And we have Dan Foley, who was a dear friend of mine, childhood friend. And we took the journey. He took the first step of the journey west with me. We did our first play together called The 25th Man. We'll talk about that and just our friendship and how he kind of went another way, said, I'm going to go have a family. And he did the smart thing because he's got a great family and a very successful guy and just a great friend. And so it's going to be great talking with him.
Enjoy.
Hey, everybody. I was in Encino, California the other day at a meeting. And I get out of there and I'm hungry as can be, man. And there's traffic, LA traffic. And I'm thinking, I got to get some side streets here like my dad did in Wrigley. And I wind up at Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive and there's Gino's East Pizza. Boom, park the car, go inside, and I order a tavern pizza, cheese and sausage, my favorite, top 3 foods of all time. And there's the owner, Dan and Todd, and they're like, hey man, you're on the TV. I'm like, yeah, right guys. They love to razz me once in a while. And sure enough, I was. My dad's documentary from MLB was playing. But I had no time for that. I had to eat my pizza. I devoured that thing in a minute. I was so hungry. You got to go to Gino's East for the greatest pizza around. Gino's East, LA. Put it in your Google's map right now. It's going to be our place to go, me and Christy, on Friday's happy hour. Go to Gino's East, right near Coldwater Canyon and the 101. Put it in your Google's map now. We'll see you there.
This part of my life now is so weird. I got into these documentaries. You know what I mean? And it's just an odd thing. I like your documentary a lot, The Old Cub. And I love nine innings from Ground Zero. and I love Operation Odessa. Those three, but I'm not a huge documentary fan. And now it's consumed my life. You know what I mean? And they're four so different. All four are so different, and it's so much pressure. It's so much work. I can't even tell you.
Documentaries are again, they take on your life. I mean, doing my dad's documentary, people look at, it must have been you did the story on your dad. That was 6 years of my life. And I mean, I'm dedicated on every level, from raising the money to getting it done, to shooting it, to editing it, to promoting it. And then still to this day, making sure it still gets out there. But again, that's a passion thing, right?
Mine's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When you make that decision,
yeah,
right, almost like you can go the distance with passion stuff. It might be a little tough when it's not.
It's not, but I also got an unbelievably good company, doing them. Unrealistic ideas. It's Archie Gibbs, Mark Wahlberg, and Steve Levinson. So it's three big players in Hollywood, and they've done tremendous documentaries. Right? They did like just recently they did the De La Hoya doc, which is really good. And they've done McMillions, which was another. They've done big docs, and the guy Archie Gibbs, who's the head of the, he's co-owner, but he's kind of the guy in charge. He did some amazing stuff over the years. Like Duck Dynasty was a huge hit, and I got them up. It's not like what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was all you. It's not all me. And then the Hard to Kill doc, which is going along really well. We got this tremendous director called Estevan, and he did two docs that were both #1 docs, one on Showtime, one on Netflix. So he's a consummate pro.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm doing that much, and it's still taking up a lot of time.
But they're hard, man. Docs are hard. You got to put the time in. You got to follow the subject. You got to have a good subject to follow.
Yeah.
And I look at that as, doing my dad's doc and then doing a film with Sonny Barger. Those two kind of guys, they were similar, way different, but the mentality, the focus, the dedication to, my dad to the Cubs, to him to the Angels. It's just, you see lead characters and you go, those are the kind of people when you focus on writing, you always got to have a decent lead character, don't you think?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. And in all four docs, and they're so different, the subjects are compelling. Even the music doc, it's EDM, which I could care less about. I know nothing about it. And the guy, he's in the middle of EDM world, and it's drugs. It's this, and he's a devout Mormon. He's only had sex with his wife. He's never done a drug, never drank. So that makes it so interesting. It's
right.
This guy's making $25 million a year, but he's home with his family every night. He's not working.
Yeah.
And even when he works, he does a residency in Vegas, and he learned how to fly a helicopter just so he can make sure he's home on Sunday mornings with his family. So even though it's nothing that I would be interested in, it's interesting. It's compelling,
Yeah.
So I think that's it's not, your dad and Sonny, very cool. And they're both two guys that I think the macho element and this and that, you know what I mean? That we can relate to and really like. This isn't macho, but it's just interesting because he's such a, I like odd characters,
And so do I. Those just happen to be two guys that were in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
That I was fortunate enough to write about. But I look at that, and that does give me a bar to go, make sure, because what they bring, you're going to follow someone like that.
Yeah.
Female, who doesn't matter who, so.
Now, were you always into bikes? Motorcycle culture?
I had mini bikes and dirt bikes when I was young, but not until I got together and started doing the movie.
Yeah. Huh? Wow. That's interesting because... and now you're getting ready to do another motorcycle movie.
Yes, because I was in the culture for a long time, and I liked the culture, and I learned a lot from Sonny just as a man and how he, handled himself around the club, around people that didn't know him, and I felt like he was such an interesting character. I did co-write his autobiography.
Yeah.
For Fox 2000 with Rob Weiss.
Yeah.
Which
I love. I love that script.
Which is a great life story. I mean, it's unbelievable, but they haven't made it. It went and turned around, and Disney bought Fox and blah, blah, blah. But it's just his character, my dad's character. I'm fascinated with guys that can be dedicated to something, know what they want, and then go it and lead it and be it. And so I wanted to write something about that character in the motorcycle culture, and then also a female character with the same kind of guts, much younger, more like a granddaughter kind of character, where they meet on the road to kind of protect each other. He's on his last mission, last ride. He's old. He's kind of dying, and he's got to go save his club because there's a guy all the way across the country doing the wrong thing with it. So it's about him and his club and trying to save it one last mission while this girl is performing burlesque, and she rides a motorcycle, which is based off a girl that we followed on the internet, and wrote this story where she has someone following her that's dangerous. And so together they ride to protect each other because he's going in the territory that's not his club's territory. So it's a fascinating story on the road about just watching out for the snakes, kind of like you were talking, getting back to Tito, who brought him down.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's those type of people that you kind of, you got to get through to get your mission done. And so that's kind of this next indie story that we're going to do. But like you said, it takes time, and finding that time and finding the money. It's a low budget, but that's our next project that we're shooting for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it, and I'm sure and you're going to play the lead.
I do. I want to play. I do. I want to get a little older, but I feel like I understand this guy well. I understood my dad. I understood Sonny, and I understand this guy, which is kind of a mixture of them and myself.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. When you told me, I was floored because I don't consider you an actor. You know what I mean?
Right,
Why
right.
would I? I know you as a writer, but I could see it. From what you told me about the part, I could definitely see you do that.
Thank you, man. But it's gonna take. It's gonna be up to finding the right people to back us, and we're not going with any names. We are going with actors. But today in Hollywood, man, only a few names take you places nowadays, and they're at such a higher level that the industry's changing so much, and hopefully the independent film will come back because it's lost a little bit because it's hard to get distribution. But if we can get the right mix, a right distributor behind us, and do it for, a low budget, I think that we can do a lot with it because we're advanced filmmakers now, and we're only going to have an A-team, so that's the way I want to do that. Now we have another project that is at a higher level, but that's up to, like you're talking about, up to Hollywood to make it happen. So a lot of things got to go right on that side, and sometimes you're out of control. You don't have control of that, don't you feel? I mean, that's the tough thing about Hollywood.
That's the tough thing. It's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard, and I know major players that really had hard time getting studio movies made. Like I know what Brad Pitt went through with Moneyball. You know what I mean? And that's Brad Pitt. He's one of the biggest stars in the world, and I know stuff that Joe and Mickey have tried to get done, and they couldn't get done, and these are major stars.
Yeah.
And so people don't get it. A lot of people like, well, you have so many famous friends. Why don't you? It doesn't matter. They're trying to get their stuff done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people don't get that. You know what I mean? That they're trying to get their stuff done, and it's tough. It's really tough.
What would you say to a guy, a young Peter Conte, coming to Hollywood today?
Go home. I think it's changed so much. You know what I mean? Because I think, when I came out here a long, long time ago, right? It was much different. There was no internet, and it was like a smaller community. It really was. And we always used to say, "Oh, there's 500 people. Either you're part of the 500 or you're not," right? And it's changed now because, number one, you don't even have to be out here.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so much is done with cameras. You shoot on red now. Like, these cameras are fucking amazing. You know what I mean? There was none of that.
No.
There was none of that when I started out. So I think there's a lot more opportunity, and it's weird because I don't see it happening.
No, because it's tough. The structure's tough because you got these streaming places. You're not going to get in the door of those places unless you have someone that can bring you through it. It really is tough. I mean, so you got to be in the Writers Guild. So how does an indie person come in here? They got to start from ground zero and see if they can get on a show, blah, 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 work up that way. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's almost like you got to find new ways of getting stuff done like they did in,
I think now at least you could get stuff and put it on the internet. there was no internet back then.
But I'm talking about getting a real movie done.
Yeah, but I think that's a way. You know what I mean? And there's so much money out there. I don't know. I think it's probably a better time than it was. I think
they haven't figured out a distribution entity for that kind of way.
No, not yet.
But they do need to, because that can be competition for the big studios, and there's really no competition anymore, because that indie. Remember, you had Robert Rodriguez bring up some good movies that you could do, those movies that got big distribution that actually got sucked up by Hollywood.
Absolutely.
So that kind of thing isn't really happening so much anymore on the level it was back then, where you would see new filmmakers.
Yeah, 90s was a very exciting time.
It was.
You know what I mean? There were a lot of Michael Correnti, different people that were doing it and doing it at a high level and getting people to do it. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just think it's so much easier to make films now.
I think it's easier.
Like with Final Cut and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but is it gonna be a professional level that's gonna hit it at, to a wide audience? I mean, you still have to have a story that it could be a niche, but to do it well, you have to be with experienced people to do it well. I still believe in that. I don't think someone could say, because you almost got to go back to sports. Can someone just go and say, I'm going to be a professional baseball player?
No, not at all.
So you got to almost think of Hollywood that way too. Can I go in and make a great movie and act and do all this stuff? Well, you better have experience, and you better have experienced people behind you.
Yeah.
And the story has to be that has to be the first thing that has to work.
It seems like the most creative people going into television, right?
Yes, it does.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see things like, I don't know, some like, even the what do you call it? The limited run stuff.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like, did you ever see The Night Of?
The Night Of?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have.
No. It's better than 99.9% of any movies I've seen. Escape from Dannemora.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I mean? we watch them all. I mean, most of them all on
tremendous.
On all the streaming. Yeah, and we have a show, Blue Collar Famous, that about that we're trying to get with Bonnie Hunt, and we hope that goes. But again, we're gonna push it as far as we can, but it's gonna be up to someone there that gives us the green light, right?
That's the thing.
Because you can't do that kind of thing on your own.
You can't do that.
It's too expensive. It's just it's at a higher level. It's a period piece. So you got to find the things that you can do that you can control.
Absolutely.
And make it the best you can make it. That's what independent film's about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, your voice, man, I just feel like, writing is your gold.
Yeah, I never wanted to do anything else with it. You know what I mean? Mickey and stuff. I did a little bit of acting at the beginning, just because I was learning. I wanted to be on the set, and I did that. But it was always I tried directing, and I was terrible at it. Absolutely terrible at it. I don't have that kind of eye or the patience. But the writing's the one thing I like to do. And you talk about how hard it is to get people to give you a chance to get a movie made. It's very hard to get books done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because nobody reads anymore.
Mm-hmm.
People don't read. Just like people don't go see independent movies.
Right.
It's changed. Even studio movies, what are they? They're superhero shit at the end of the day, right? How many real movies are out there?
Yeah.
It was amazing what Tom Cruise did with Maverick.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Of course,
but
that's Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it was Tom Cruise, but it was also non-superhero. It was a story. It was, you know what I mean? It was well done, and people went and see it. It was, Spielberg said he saved Hollywood, basically.
Yeah.
He got people back in the movie
theaters. He brought
theaters.
back the big movie.
Yeah, and I like big movies.
Yeah.
But I like those movies in the 90s a lot, too.
Yep.
And I miss them. I miss those small movies.
I agree, man. I think there's going to be more of those. I think there has to be some kind of change. There really does.
Well, your thing, with the Easy Riders, that could be definitely like a cult film.
It's called Wild Ones. Yeah.
Wild Ones. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I knew it was one
Wild
movie.
Ones.
Yeah, Wild Ones. Yeah.
Wild Ones.
And I just think that could be a movie people want to watch.
I think so. It's got the elements, and it's an indie for sure. We wrote it that way. It's a character piece. It's really two characters on the road, man.
So very different.
Yeah.
Right? And it could be cool. Because then you have the age gap, which is always fun to deal with.
It is. So what's next for you, Peter? I know you're writing another novel, right? Talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's, as I said, it's the Beachy Benetti, but I haven't gotten around to it. I got the 4 docs. You know, that's a major thing. Then I got this comedy I wrote with a really good actor slash rapper called Slane. And we got a lot of heat on it right now. It's really good. It's about the Juggalo culture.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And Slane's a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
He's going to play the lead, and got a good producer behind it who's packaging it. And I think it's one of the funniest things I've read. You know, I really think that script is so funny. So we're working on that. You know, that takes up a lot of time. And then the biggest thing probably I'm working on is this. I got hired to write the script and the book. So I'm doing both. So it's this woman, Dawn Hanna, a very interesting woman. She's from Iraq. No, she's from Detroit, but her family's from Iraq. They're Christian Iraqis, and her father, at 55, when we were at war against Saddam, he went over there and was a translator for the U.S. because he was trying to topple that government, because he remembers what Iraq was like, you know, as a kid, and it was very different than when the Taliban took over. So they hate Saddam. She ends up going to prison for 6 years for selling, because they said that she sold Saddam technology stuff. It was a complete lie. She never did it. It turned out it was a CIA operation. They were trying to get the phones to Saddam to track him, but she didn't know any of this. She was selling it to someone in Turkey, but they put it to, and she ended up doing 6 years in prison, and it's all because of the prosecutor, the DA, just went after her with a vengeance, and it just shows how corrupt the system can be. You know, how corrupt the federal government can be, and she lost 6 years of her life, and she's bounced back well. She's a hard worker and a hustler. She's an amazing woman. So I think it's going to be an important book. I've interviewed like 30 people about it.
Wow, man.
I just interviewed the guy who was in charge of the Iraqi operation. He was in charge of counterintelligence, and he's a big advocate for her, like a huge advocate, and he knew she didn't do anything wrong. And she's an amazing woman. So it's absolutely, I think, an important work, and it seems like the most important thing I've done, because it really exposes how corrupt, if you just get the wrong prosecutor and they're after you. You know, and it's, again, I don't know anything about this world. I don't know anything about terrorists. I don't know anything about Iraq. I spent time with her in Detroit, interviewing everyone, and her brother is this genius, like, and that word's thrown around a lot. He's an engineer. He's a genius professor. I think he got his PhD at like 25, 26 years old, and he got arrested too. But they didn't prosecute him. They only prosecuted her. And then it's just funny because she's so smart and everything. When she went to prison in maybe Tennessee, somewhere in the South, she ended up running the whole prison, and I met the person she ran with, this black woman who was this arsonist, professional arsonist. So I went to Indiana to interview her, and so they ran the whole prison, the two of them. And I also interviewed the warden, and it was like this rich white girl and this poor black girl, and they came together to run the prison.
Wow.
And he said they ran it, and then they were friends, and you know, all this. He ended up marrying one of the women that they were in prison with. So I got her perspective too. You know, it was funny. So I think it should be a good book. I want to have the first draft of the book, and I'm kind of taking notes for the screenplay simultaneously. I'd like to have that by February. So,
wow, man!
You know, that's the goal. But she's an amazing woman, and I think when her story gets out there, there's been a lot written about her, but not the whole story. So I think that's the main thing.
God, you got a lot going on, man.
Always. You know how it is. Yeah, but you got to. You know what I mean? You got to, right? Yeah.
Now talk about, lastly here, you're a professor.
Yeah.
Of the written word.
Yeah.
What keeps you doing that? What do you like about that?
It's a steady paycheck, and it's also, you know, you get, you know, but I like keeping, as I said, keeping my, knowing how 18, 19-year-olds talk, I think is really important. And what they're into, and it's changed so dramatically.
And what are they into?
The internet. That's about it. At the end of the day, it controls their life. TikTok controls their life. You know what I mean? For the most part, not all of them. But
do you find good writers out of there?
Very seldom. I got one kid I've been mentoring since she's 12. She's 15 now. She's really special. She's writing a book. Her mother was from Cambodia when Pol Pot was dictator. And her whole family was wiped out. She lived somehow. They made her a nurse when she was five. She used to have to administer shots to dying people and stuff when she was 5. So it's about this suburban kid who, they come from, her dad does well and this and that. A suburban kid who's had a very carefree life and dealing with all the mother stuff. So it's just like telling her story and the mother's story simultaneously. So I've been working really hard with her. It's like a YA book, and it's really funny. And she's one of the most talented kids. She started writing it when she was 13, and she's one of the most talented kids I've ever worked with. Her name's Catherine Hutchinson, and she's really talented. And I think the book's going to be special. And the stories the mother has under Pol Pot, it's like nothing you can imagine. Wow. He wiped out, he killed 2 out of 7 million of his own people.
Wow.
And most Americans don't even know his name. So it's like, I think it'll be an important book. And
that's great, man.
She's just funny, and she's just like a normal kid. She plays soccer, and she's into Taylor Swift, but she just happens to be blessed.
Right.
She's an amazing writer.
And because of look where she came from, right? I mean, you can't write unless you got some big scars there to write about. Don't you believe in that?
I think at the end of I think the first thing is talent. I really believe it's talent. Listen, Shakespeare writes 39 plays, 144 sonnets, and 3 historical dramas, basically about the human condition, and he never left a 30-mile radius in his entire life. Where did he get that? Mm-hmm. Where was he able to write about a prince in Denmark or a Moor from Othello? At the end of the day, it's talent, I think, a lot of it.
But that talent, you got to work hard at it.
Yeah, you got to work hard.
I've never seen anybody with talent think they just go by on talent.
I know, absolutely. You got those two. But, I don't, I know a lot of, I have a lot of students who have these, come from Somalia, and they can't write. So, they might have great stories, but they can't write.
Right.
So it's like, I just think you don't catch many people with talent. And that want to do it. I'm kind of forcing her to do it. She didn't know what she wanted to do. The mother wants her to be a nurse, so I go, if it's a nurse or a writer, you better be a writer. So she's kind of going with it. But she's a kid.
She'll thank you for it later on,
who
that's
knows,
for sure.
But she's a kid. But she's, my wife and I stayed with her family for a night in Martha's Vineyard or something. I don't Nantucket or wherever they were for the summer. They had a summer house. And they're just normal people. But the mother has these scars and these, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's amazing that this kid's able to capture the mother so well,
But I feel like some people get it early, whether, because she's in the right place. She got you to guide her. You got to have someone to guide her. You need some type of mentor. Yeah. I mean, even on my dad's path, you know what I mean? He had to find someone,
We don't have that in this
Rogers,
country.
Hornsby, there's some guy to say, you're going to make it. There's someone there to feed this journey, and not everyone gets that. The few get that.
Well, we don't have that in this country, right? We don't have mentorships, right? We have colleges, but we don't do that. In Europe they do it.
Should do it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no doubt about it.
But I do think, looking at both of us talking to each other here, I never really had a full-on mentor guy, someone to really tell me which direction to go after I realized I was never going to play baseball, right?
Yeah.
And finding that is tough. And you're coming from a place where you had to,
I had Joe,
elaborate,
Joe,
but you also had he had his world.
Yeah, he had his world.
And it wasn't, there's only so much he can do.
No, it isn't even about what he, it's just seeing this guy who's so talented and he, from Raging Milan, and then seeing all his struggles. All the stuff he couldn't, get done, that he wanted to get done in certain things. And then Joe, I got around him and Dustin Hoffman for a while. And both of them are tremendous writers, even though they never take writing credit. Dustin wrote a lot of Tootsie, which is one of the greatest comedies ever. Yeah. And he didn't take, Murray Shishko got the credit, who was his in-house writer at the time. But like Dustin's tremendous writer. Joe's tremendous writer. I remember like the first play I did with Joe called House Arrest, and I had the couples. It was a couple, married couple, and they're calling each other names like Lee and Brooke. And he goes, "What the fuck? They calling each other by their name?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, if you're gonna call your wife by her name, it's only because you want a motherfucker. But you don't never. You walk around the house, hey, how you doing, Doris? How you doing? Like little things like that. Right. But he's a tremendous writer. He wrote a lot of Scorsese stuff. Even though he doesn't get credit.
Right.
And so again, just seeing like. And then the thing that I did with Dustin, seeing just how, when I first met Dustin, I was helping his daughter with her college essay. She was applying to NYU, and I worked with him on it, me and him and her, and he was like, you just see how fucking the perfectionist and the work ethic, like all the stuff you heard about him all these years as an actor, but here he is helping put together a college essay, you know what I mean? And then I ended up working with him on a script with his son, who's a very talented writer, Jake Hoffman, who's a really good director, actually. And Jake and I, we took Whatever Happened to Martin Barnett and made that into a movie, and Dustin helped us a lot on that. But, there's a lot of people you learn from, you know what I mean? But it's just weird with me, it was more actors than writers, kind of, outside of my professors, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it was those actors that I really learned a lot about writing, even though none of them have writing credits.
Yeah.
Even Mickey too. Mickey helped,
Yeah, it's almost like the destination, though, like looking like at my dad's path and Rogers Hornsby saying, you could play in the bigs tomorrow, right? And going back to the head of the Cubs saying you should get Sano and Williams up here, that kind of thing is lacking. It's hard to have that in Hollywood.
Very
what
hard.
I mean? It's hard for someone to go, I'm with this person, come with me. All right, stay on this path. You're going to make a living here, and you're going to go up this way. And that's hard to get out here.
Yeah. When Joe had brought that script called The Cruise, to Universal, and he brought it and sat down, and they said they were going to make it, like, had they made it, then my whole life would have been different.
Right.
And it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think people take a shot with you a couple times, but then, they got their own lives.
Yep.
At the end of the day.
True. So that's why you just got to keep doing what you're doing. And,
and
I've come to a point, man, we're the same age.
Yeah.
And I'm happy where I am.
Yeah,
like I feel you are too now. I mean, you and Florencia,
being
you got her
getting
now.
married really helped,
And you almost, you just go, I got my wife, and we write together, we do great stuff together, and I wish I had more of this earlier, right? But it's like, thank God I have it now, and just do what you want to do and do it the right way from here on out. Like the older you get, time is money, man. Time is your life. Yeah. And so to me, man, if I'm going to put some time into it, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen from it, and it's going to happen the right way. And I feel like that's the difference I feel, and having a partner like my wife, Christy, was that I believe it's going to happen in a different way than it happened before.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff you do is kind of, it almost got there, this is that.
Yeah.
Besides my dad's documentary, which I'm very proud of, other stuff you wish you could boost another level, but
but you still made them.
You still made them, and
you made more than most.
Yeah.
You made more than most. You know what I mean?
But it's...
I read something, a studio exec told me that more people make a first movie and never make a second than do.
Yeah.
And that's something you should be proud of. You know what I mean? You've made multiple movies.
Yeah. But it's, again, you almost look like everyone wants to get into that studio system, but that studio system is almost a mirage.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. Yeah. And you got to make it happen your way. Which way do you want it? There's a way to come up and be a writer and start off as an assistant and try and get into a writer's room.
And that's the way to do it.
I think that is the way to do it today.
Absolutely.
Right. If you're really a writer, go the writer's way, right? If you're a director, find that visual way to get up that ladder.
I think it's not something I would have wanted to do, but that's the something. Go in, PA, and then get, be an assistant in the writer's room and get in the writer's room. And I see these kids and they do it. I just would have never had the patience. but it's not my cup of tea. But it is what it is.
But you didn't come from that structure, did I? So it's like, we weren't out here in our 20s.
Yeah, well, I was just doing other things.
What age did you get out here at?
22.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was young. Yeah, I was very young. Yeah. And then but I did the plays and I did other things. I was doing other things and it didn't interest me and I didn't know anything about it. And TV wasn't what TV was.
No.
You know what I mean? It wasn't. No, it wasn't like it is now.
No.
And it is what it is what it is. So.
Well, I can't wait to read your next book, your next novel, man.
I can't wait to see you on the road. Can't wait to see you riding that big Harley on the road, right?
Man. Well, it's an Indian chief.
Oh, it's an Indian.
Yeah,
you're gonna do an Indian.
Yeah,
oh, cool.
So, man, I brother, I love you. You are a true writer, true artist. I hope you write 5 to 10 more novels in your life, man.
I hope so too.
Because that is gold for you, and I hope you have the time to do it. And it's
someday.
And you find it. Yeah, you're gonna, man. You're gonna.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome, buddy.
I've become a Cubs fan since I met you, outside of the Yankees. So, go Cubs.
You heard it. Yes. Go Cubs. Peter Conti.
All right.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
See you, bye.
That moment was brought to you by the Audio Suite, a sound recording, design, editorial, and mixing company for film, broadcast, advertising, music, podcasts, audiobooks, and multimedia industries. The Audio Suite provides high-quality services at cost-effective solutions to meet your post-production needs. Voiceover, narration, ADR, sound design, sound effects, editorial and sweetening, recording, mixing, mastering, audio restoration, and more. The Audio Suite will get you to the finish line on time and on budget. Steve Harrison, owner, designer, mixer, has decades of experience and has worked with various clients from HBO Films to Penguin Random House, to us, Santo Films. When we needed post-production mastering for our independent film Dead in 5 Heartbeats, the Audio Suite was our go-to place. Steve is knowledgeable, reliable, and always delivers the highest quality. Go to www.audiosuitestudios.com. We highly recommend.
Cracker Jack.
This call is being recorded.
Dan Foley, you are the last Cracker Jack of the season. The final show. I have to reach out to you, my man. We took the journey together. I got to talk
part
about
of the journey.
Yeah, we did, man. God, going back to the 25th man, our late 20s.
Oh my God, Spence Taylor, baby.
Right, Spence Taylor. At the Halstead Theater, we put up a play. First play, wrote it with you. And, how about that, man? I got to ask you, you had a really kind of serious job. What made you take that leap? I mean, we kind of had a brave, creative leap there from where we both kind of existed and said, let's try this.
Oh, 100%. Well, you had obviously started writing when you were down at the Board of Trade, and I remember you sharing some of the things you were working on, and I just got immersed in your process and what you're doing, and I just wanted to be supportive of it, right? And then on top of it all, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great reading, and man, I'll never forget when maybe March 1992ish, we were sitting around your apartment in Lincoln Park, and I don't know how we came up with the idea, but the average salary in baseball had just gone to $1 million, right?
Right.
And I remember you and I being like, really? How is that possible? The average guy in the team is making $1 million a year. And that just spawned your idea of delving into that, man. And what would that be like?
Yeah, and the 25th man, which was a cool concept. I mean, the last guy in the bench, and how we came up with it was cool. Spence Taylor, we gave him a name, and basically he's been on the DL for a while with vertigo because a couple of players at the time had that happening to them. Plus the yips, kind of like a Steve Sachs kind of thing, right? And
right.
And he comes back to the team, and it started as a one-man play when we thought about it. We're doing a one-man play,
well, we didn't even think it was a play at the time, though, Jeff. Right? Like we just ran with this idea, like what it would be like to be in the dugout during a game. And, if you're in the dugout, who is that guy? And why is he on the bench? Why isn't he playing? Right. and the idea of a play, man, that didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
We were just having fun with an idea. And then, and then we flushed it out. And like you said, it turned into a one-man play. And I remember us just sharing it with a couple of close friends, right? Who else is going to read it, right? And we got some good feedback, man. And then for us to have the huevos to think that we could put on a play, what did we know about producing a play, let alone, the writing of it?
Right. Nothing. And the idea too, like finding Spence Taylor, which was another kind of just, come on, we just pick out a guy that, and I met a guy down at the board that I felt like could play this the way he was. And, And the funny thing is just taking that kind of risk, like with a guy who has never really acted, it really is so bad, right?
Yeah.
And so, but it worked out. I mean, literally, like we worked with him, and the concept was funny. It was a funny play. It was a fun play.
Yeah.
He sat on the end of the bench. He sang, he sang the seventh inning stretch. He talked to fans, and he talked about how, dealt with a rookie, which we added the rookie to the play, and then we added Yosh Kawana.
to get
a little fight.
Had to counteract Spence's bravado, right? He was just, he could be unbearable, right? But we want him to be likable at the same time, right? So we introduced other characters around him to help flush him out as a person, and we get to see his real insecurities, right? And
exactly.
So it's, when he's talking to the rookie, the audience knows he's full of crap, but he's still likable, right? He's giving the rookie advice, and then Yosh is the one who really calls him out, right? Because Yosh is not going to put up with anybody's crap.
Right.
So, we framed this guy. He was likable, and like you said, man, he's so into the game, which we like, right? Because he's not passive. He's cheering on his teammates, and we're following the game through his eyes and his experience in the dugout. Remember, how in the world did you connect to the Remains Theater? Because I know you made that happen. The fact that we even got their stage.
Yeah, because William Peterson owned the Remains Theater at the time, and we just did that was like, we just passed out tickets, come to the Remains, and the show was,
we sold a few, brother. Hey, man, we sold a few tickets. Come on.
I think we, at the Remains, right? We did. Yeah. You're right. We did sell them. But it was like
we had a couple hundred people in there, man, for a one-man show.
We did.
We had our buddies volunteering to be ushers, and
God, it's right.
We got to rehearse in the stage, man. Peterson's brother, what was his first name? He was a nice guy. He ran the theater, gave us access to the stage so we could rehearse. And going back to one of your other comments, like the idea that we could think that we could do this, we didn't know what we didn't know, man. We just kept moving forward.
It was such an experience because that Remains thing was fun. People laughed, but you're like, is it good? Is it good enough to take to the next level? Right? We're kind of like, I was all caught up on that. I'm like, oh, this is something great, and you're just like, you're doing something new. And then we did take it from there and work on it more, and got put it up at the Halstead Theater. Wasn't that on Halstead and Diversey, right next to the fire station? Yeah. And
right down the street from Gary Sinise's theater.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of Theater Row. The other thing, man, you got to go back to, though, I remember the next morning because the manager of the theater, he had invited some other theater owner operators or theater companies to come see us, right? I mean, he gave us the idea that you bring in, some other artistic directors from other theaters, and you showcase this thing, right? And we got a couple calls back, and one of them was the Halstead Theater. It was like the next day, so that was that was energizing. Yeah. That was wildly exciting.
It was, and then going to Halstead, obviously, you just can't do it. You need some help, and we got some help from our good friend Billy Savino to help. Okay, we'll put you in the theater. Yeah. Funded it, and that was great. And it was small, though. I mean, it was literally, if you think about we were in that theater. Yeah, we kept it.
Yeah, they had 2 theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted it to be intimate because it would be terrible if there's, 50 people in a large theater. It would have been embarrassing. So we were in the smaller theater that they had there. And that was quite a summer, man.
Oh, it was cool. It was fun, man. And times I remember you didn't have many people. And then all of a sudden we got a burst of people to come in for a good month. I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, we had a run there.
Yeah. We had a run. I brought
and good reviews, dude. So, what about your dad?
No, bringing him in. Remember him and a couple of players came because he was announcing then. So that was great. That was fun. Right. Yeah, we were.
And honest to God, do you remember having a bad review?
I don't know. I think, just on a point, maybe like the reader said, it's silliness or something. And it kind of was, but it was fun, like you said. But actually the story was, at the end, just to let the people know, I mean, the guy has to pinch hit at the end of the game, and he strikes out with the bases loaded. And basically, it's his farewell to baseball. He's done now, And so it had a nice little ending. I mean, you look at it now. If you really went at it, you're having a really fun play. But we had elements of it all the way through. It worked. It worked enough to entertain the crowd that came to watch it. So
for real. And it was magical to experience that. And that's when I thought, oh my God, do people make a living doing this? Right? Is that possible?
Right.
Again, not having a clue what really the definition of a starving artist is, right? But yeah, I quit my job because I'm sure it was you. We got some feelers, and people were telling us because the theater season, runs out, and baseball, baseball playing in the middle of dead winter in Chicago is probably not going to be a great idea, I guess. What do we know? But we ended up going to Arizona, man. Wow.
Yeah, we made the trip to Arizona, put it on you did. And my job was I was existing at the Board of Trade. I just didn't know what I was going to, do. And I mean, I was doing something, but it just wasn't fulfilling me for, it was almost subconsciously like, I gotta move on. I don't know where yet. And you had a steady gig, man. And you really, all right, here we go. And we packed up my Ford Ranger and we took off to Arizona, and that journey was, that was different too. We're in our late 20s and we wound up both kind of like, okay, this now you got to survive. And we got a job at Marley Sports Grill.
Yeah.
Got it. And that was kind of a fun journey.
That was, I remember we landed there and we had a fantastic apartment, not in the sense that it was, extraordinary or beautiful. It was the location was unbelievable. And you had to hook up with somebody who was managing the property, and we got jobs right away. But the thing that just turned it all upside down for me was when the Mill Avenue Theater, which had committed to putting on the 25th Man, when they went under. And that's when, it was a big reality check for me. And I think we've talked about this a little bit. I think our relationship got strained a little bit there because you were so committed, man. And I've told you this. I've always respected your commitment and work ethic. And I wasn't prepared to do that, man. I enjoyed all the fun that came with that, let's be honest. But the work that you have to put into it, man, that was not for me. I needed to get back to the real world, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, it was tough,
you know?
man. Yeah, no, I get it, man. We look back at it now. We didn't. There were times it was tough. We didn't treat each other the best at times because a lot too, man. You think about it. At that age, you're still, you're trying to find yourself. What are you going to do? What's permanent? And for yourself. And we also came from the same kind of friend pool, so that was tough.
Yep.
Of just kind of like we had a lot of things to get over, and it was just hard. And I look back at that, and that was just like I'm thinking, yeah, you went back, and I took off to L.A.
And it turned out good decisions for both of us, right? I mean, you just kept working, and you had your dream and the vision. And I went back to Chicago, and I don't regret it. I went back to work in the same business that I'd come from. I was fortunate to land back on my feet. And then to think that our friendship, I think, grew from there, in a way, allowing each of us to go pursue our individual aspirations. And then, man, when you met Christy, wow, I think you began to flourish.
Yeah, well, that was a long time from there, but yeah, man, and you got a great family, and both your kids are, and they're not kids anymore, they're adults. They're artistic also, so that artistic gene is there, right? Let's get back. Yeah. Let's jump now to. We'll talk about it going forward, but like growing up, man, like you actually grew up on the other side of the so-called tracks in Glenview, right? I mean, I didn't. When I think of Dan Foley, especially in junior high, I got a little intimidated by Dan Foley. He hung out with a rough kind of crowd, and I remember you grew up with, you got 4 Irish boys, Irish Catholic boys. You guys close in age, like your own, starting backfield in football. But it's, I remember I got into an altercation, like a little party fight with your brother, Timmy.
Yep.
And I'm like, Dan's coming for me now, So I don't even know who won, but I just remember.
Oh, you won.
Dan.
No, you won. Tim and I've joked about it since then, but gosh, Jeff, the idea that would be coming from me. No, I was probably angry at my brother for getting his ass kicked and, take it out on you. 4 boys. I don't know how my mother did it. It was, it was funny. I was listening to Peter Conti talk about, the old cliche. He said something like, some people say, they didn't know they were poor because they had everything. Yeah, no, growing up on the west side of Glenview, I knew we had money, right?
Right.
And, not that we weren't poor, but relative to everybody I went to school with, right? I never had the right shoes, or I never had an A1000 baseball glove. I had, some, nasty Rawlings glove that was secondhand or whatever. And those things kind of weigh on you as a kid. You just feel like, you want to fit in and you don't. But in 8th grade, I started running with a tougher crowd. Some guys that, a couple of them, I won't name names, a couple of them are actually dead now. Not that it was like, on the streets of Glenview, but their lives were hard, and they were troubled guys. And, so I did. I had a rough patch between 8th grade and sophomore year where I was I was clearly running with the wrong guys. And my old buddy Terry from the Marauder days, remember, junior football.
So sports kind of helped you out of that, right? I mean, kind of football kind of took you a different 100%. Way. Yeah,
100%. But, it's funny. We talk about sports. Sports was so important. And that's where I met Terry, and that's how I got to know Jim McCauley. And of course, I knew you through Little League and the Eagles football, but it wasn't until probably 7th, 8th grade that, I personally got to know you. And then further on in, your sophomore year in high school, we became pretty fast friends through Terry.
Yeah, we sure did.
But what's ironic about our athletic endeavors, man? I think back, and I know you were artistic as a kid too, right? I remember you were like the star of the Lions elementary
Jack
school.
And I was Jack and the Beanstalk. I had 2 solos. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, where did that go?
Yeah, I know. I was Barney O'Toole at Hanking Elementary School, and singing, dancing, and having a blast. But by the time you get to high school, you know what I want to ask you about? I don't know if we ever talked about it. Did you ever do anything at Springman with Miss Artabasie? Or
I was in the Beatles musical we had there. And I also was in The Wizard of Oz, which I was wanting to play the lead, and then something happened. I think I got hurt, and I wound up, playing one of the. I think I was the mayor of the Munchkin Land. I'm not sure, but I think I was. Yeah, and I was going
you don't
for
want
the
to remember
lead, man.
That.
I was going for one of the leads. I wanted to play the Scarecrow, and I was in both of them. And then we did what was the Yellow Submarine, man. She was amazing as a talk about a teacher, musical theater teacher. She was just amazing. Yeah. And you were in those too, right?
Yeah. Well, and that was my point. Like, so when we were, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 8th grade, up to 8th grade, you could do both, right? You could be in the musicals and no one, it was great. You were more popular because of it. And then you get to high school, man. And that's my great regret is that I didn't stick with any of that. No theater, no musical stuff. It was all sports, and then you're running with some different crowds. So that was
that was wrong. I feel like today I hope it's different, but maybe it's not because we if you think about it, you bring both of those elements together, being athletic. And then getting into theater, you're working with a lot, And I think there was almost kind of like, oh, you don't go to the theater department. How ridiculous is that, right?
Or you can't be in the choir, right?
Yeah,
or
just ridiculous. But that's a regret too. It's just, but you don't have much guidance, man. No one's kind of telling hey, come over here. And I remember in grade school, and even in junior high, they did do that. They did say, oh, come over here. I think you could be good. Yeah,
for sure. And of course, our dads play a role in that, right? Both our dads were totally hands off. Like my dad was just doing the best he could to raise the 4 boys and pay the bills. And
your dad was a tough guy. He was a tough cook, man. Yeah. City guy, like my dad, right? So talk about that.
Yeah. So he grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, Portage Park, and he was an only child, and he was pretty much a badass in growing up in Chicago, and a very good football player who ended up going to St. George High School, which is was over in Evanston back in the day, and they were like the powerhouse of the Catholic League back then. And he was a kid that got recruited to go there. And he had to commute in 1954 to 1960 or whatever it was, an hour and a half each way to get to high school on city buses. And, So anyway, but my dad he was a tough guy. And, if he was kind of like, hey, man, if you can't do it yourself, he wasn't going to be there to be a helicopter parent. You know what I mean? That was just not in their blood, right? I don't want to bash him. I mean, he did many great things for us, but being there to kind of sit you down and talk about, hey, what's your game plan with high school and college? Never happened.
Right. But the thing is, you look at like your dad. Your dad was a very charismatic guy too. He walked in the room, you knew he was there, right? And my dad's same way. And we take we take in their traits, man. No matter what, you can't help it. But you take in their traits, good and bad, And you just gotta, they came from a different place. We're in a different area. You're Ryan, your son, and Julie. They're in a different place from where you were. You know what I mean? It's that evolution. And
absolutely.
And you take the good stuff, man. And your dad. I always liked your dad, man. He was just straightforward. Boom, say what he feels, and And I think he kind of had a little soft spot for me for some reason, which was nice.
Oh no, he knew quality guys, right? He loved Terry and Jim and you and Billy. and he was the kind of guy, if he was cracking wise or giving you a hard time and you couldn't take it, then he might pile on. But if you could give it back, he respected that, and we all knew that, right?
Right.
So it was, he was a force.
And I remember when we did the 25th Man up at the Remains, the first showing, and he was so happy, man. And he had cancer at the time and didn't have much time to live. And that was tough, man. And, but he saw that and he really dug that we did that. And that, I could just remember his face. He's like, even as amateurish as it was, we did it and it was cool. And he dug that, man. And, talk about that. You lost both of your parents and your mom passed a little after he passed, them both in their 50s, right?
Yeah. But to your point, I will say this, both my parents, when I told them that you and I were going to go to AZ and try to get this play up again, they were both remarkably supportive. And I think my dad said something like, well, if not now, when? Well, this is the time to do it. I didn't have a wife or kids or anything. And so they were really supportive in that regard. They had a tumultuous relationship, but I will say this, man, later in life, while my dad was sick and after he passed, my mom would tell me some really heartfelt stories about their love and their romance. And it was beautiful. And they did love each other. And then I believe my mom, honestly, she died of scleroderma, but it was, I think, largely just the stress and related to my dad passing. It was just too hard for her.
Wow, man.
But
yeah, man, you handled all that. I mean, so well, man. You really kept a lot in. That's the kind of guy you're a tough guy, man. Because I can't. We don't look at it so closely as you do now and go, God, you were young, man, when both your parents died.
Right.
All the Foley brothers. That's a lot. And you guys all turned out really cool.
Nice things.
And I got to get back to like when you told me a thing when you first knew my dad. Like you went at Westbrook, you played on them because you were on the other side, so you played American League and we were in the National League. And you guys said talk about that.
Oh yeah. So this is when I first, of course, I was a Cubs fan because my dad was before I met you, and when of course you guys moved to Glenview, that was kind of news amongst any baseball fans or people. You guys, Ron was probably the biggest celebrity in town without question. But yeah, when we were playing Little League, of course I knew about you and Ronnie. But we would go down to watch your games, not to watch you and Ronnie play. But the idea was, hey man, maybe Ron will show up, and he did occasionally,
Right.
And so kids would just hover around the baseball field, hoping to see a glimpse of Ron Santo, and it was a big deal, man. I remember the first time I did see him. Remember old Maddie's Wayside Inn, right across from your neighborhood.
Where I had my first job. Terry had his first job. Rosie had his first job. We worked in the kitchen, and then we went to busboys. Go on. Maddie's Wayside Inn. So it was probably shortly after your family moved to Glenview, because I couldn't have been more than 10 years old. And my dad, kind of nudged me at the table. He goes, "There's Ron Santo." I'm like, oh my God, there he is. He was sitting there. And I have no idea who your dad, you might have been sitting there for all I knew, but I just stared at him. And, on the way out, my dad said, just say hello. You don't have to ask for an autograph or anything. And I did. And your dad was super gracious, man. Just friendly as ever. And I always remember, Jeff, jumping way forward, man, when we were older and having beers with your dad, like maybe at Don and Charlie's and having dinner. Right.
People would be coming up all the time, and your dad just wouldn't. He would just always indulge them and have a kind word. And man, he'd drop a big boy if someone came by. And he thought he knew him. He wasn't sure, and he'd go, "Hey, big boy."
Oh, that was his line. If he didn't know someone said, "Hey, how you doing, big boy?" Yeah, and then we took on the big boy element. Oh, that was great.
Of course. Yeah, but it's crazy that you think back as you you think your dad was like 26, 27, 29, 30 years old, and he was one of the best baseball players on the planet. And living in little Glenview and part of the community, man. And I mean, he was making good money, but relative to today's baseball, I mean, he wouldn't have settled. He wouldn't have settled in Glenview, Jeff.
No.
You guys would be up in Lake Forest or Kenilworth or on the lake.
With big gates around us. With big gates around us. So I'm glad that didn't happen. We were, our house was wide open. We would hear people, honking horns going by at times. But after a while, I got to tell you, man, I really, we never really talked about what you just said with, Westbrook. We never even had a conversation about that, right? Through growing up, I don't even think these are what everyone is hearing that my dad, because my dad was really the only celebrity in that town. And, and I feel like we didn't really understand it that much. It was just our lives. So I'm glad it went that way, because I think more kids today understand their dad is so famous and what they have that they don't mix in as well. Maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong. But our family, my mom was like, we were as real as could be, because everyone came over to our house.
Jeff, Judy was, and after the divorce, your mom and dad got divorced. I was, we were tighter friends then, of course, later in life. But my God, your home was the epicenter of all things high school, and later on even, man. After high school. We'd be hanging out there. But I remember going to your house when I was probably senior year for sure. And every time I'd show up, man, there'd be 10 guys. There'd be a couple guys in the kitchen. Gregorio and Wyrick would be raiding your mother's refrigerator. The Hitchcocks would be out in the back with Ronnie and some of those guys.
Ronnie's crew. Ronnie's crew was something else.
Ronnie's crew. Yeah, they controlled the turf, and we got second, hand use. When they were done, we could go play wiffle ball or whatever. Although I think we played and beat them a couple times.
Oh, of course we did. Yeah, at times, especially Ligoria and those guys. Now, if Ronnie got involved, it's a different story. But most of these guys, if we went one-on-one baseball, they didn't have a chance, especially wiffle ball or fast pitch. But we had that party. I don't know what. I think after I graduated, you guys were freshmen in college this summer, and it was just the lake was. We had that lake, and I remember we were out of control. We threw the security guy came in. Hey, you guys got to calm down. We're like, really? And we took him and threw him in the lake. Was your mom around that night? She couldn't have been. Of course not. No.
Yeah.
She was gone on those times because she had a bit of a boundary. That would have been enough,
But there had to be 100 people at that party, man.
Oh yeah.
And we got into shenanigans, man. We were not bad kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
We were not. I mean, it was just. I mean, comparatively, I think we were all pretty good kids, just have a good time. Typical. Probably a keg there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But throwing each other into the lake, and then the security guard. And then people taking the canoes out into the lake.
It was dangerous. Think about it today, and people aren't doing that. So people do drown on those kind of environments. We got lucky and just we had people that took care of themselves. It's a little different today, which I want to talk about, today, because you're a parent and the journey we're talking about, and you have two artistic children who are adults now. One's a musician, one's a dancer, and literally they went that way, and now they're kind of there's a pause on it. I think it's a little different today with people taking that artistic journey. I don't know if it's harder to survive. It might be, unless you're really financed. But what do you think about that? As far as what do you tell Ryan and Julia about their artistic journey?
Well, so I will say that early on, Debbie and I always encouraged it. Right? I mean, Julia just straight out had a passion for dance at a super young age, and it's not an exaggeration to say that she took the lead. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, and did it from a very, very young age all the way up to going to NYU to pursue a performing arts degree. And so that was a young lady that was on a mission and knew what she wanted. And so we support that 100%. Ryan, more of a musician, and it's funny, Jeff, even in high school, he he played sports, football, lacrosse, and wrestled a little bit, but he was not a lead, but he was in the musicals at his high school, and man, it was so fun to see him doing that, which was a stretch for him. He, as a musician, you're kind of doing your own thing, but to get on stage and then perform, singing and dancing, that's totally different. And yeah, so we just supported it the whole time. I think it's probably no different than sports for parents today. Like I guess people are probably living vicariously through their kids. I'm sure I did on occasion. But I don't know if the journey's different, because at the end of the day, man, talent's going to rise. And if you put the work ethic in, or if you have the work ethic, talent and the work ethic is the only way you're going to really I suppose.
Yeah, I do. And I think it's when I say different, because we survived in LA in the 90s in a different kind of way. You had a lot of people doing it. It's different. Like, I think you're right. It's a lot like how parents support their kids if they're in hockey, the traveling baseball, football, hockey, all that stuff, that they might do that for acting too. You almost have to, or the kid's not really going to have a chance to be full time. It's tough to really hone that craft and skill unless you are really, someone is supporting you, someone is mentoring you. But I do think today with kids, there's a lot of different things they can do today. And I feel like I saw this quote that I really latched on to. It said, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." And
wow,
that was from George Eliot, who was actually a woman. That was her pen name. Marianne Evan was the name. And anyway, just that line alone, going back to the 1800s, it just lives in me. It lives in me today. Like, I still have things I want to do that I thought I could have done, but I still haven't reached it, and I'm going for it. And it's in a different way, though, a different mindset now, that you got to make sure you're surviving, bringing in money while you're going for this. And I think that, like Ryan and Julia and people coming up that want that that are led by that artistic guttural feeling to pursue, that they can take a pause and they can go do something else, live some more. And then when you think about jumping, you do have to jump. You can't take a soft leap. You know what I mean? But I think it's open even farther into your 40s now. You're seeing more people do it. And you're like, well, where'd this person come from? She didn't become something until their 50s or 60s. And I believe in that, man. As long as you can, you figure it out and know what's good for you. And I always feel too, De'Emma, we didn't get a lot of that guidance and wisdom. Like I think kids today, if you really bring on that wisdom, learning from those who went before you, so you can understand what not to do, so you can focus on what to do for you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like where you got to roll. And it's different now, but you got to think it's harsher out there. It's more expensive. So you just can't go and say, oh, I'm going to be an artist and wait tables maybe. Well, you're really not going to pay the rent. So, you got to, it's different. You got to find different ways to do it. But if it's living in you, and when you do decide to jump, you have to jump. That's just my take on that.
No, man, that is amazing. And it's inspirational. And I believe it. I believe you're right. And the other thing that artists of any ilk, I don't care if it's a visual artist or an actor, a writer, whatever, there's different ways you can share your work, right? With social media. So, I guess that is something available that we didn't have,
right.
So, yeah, it's a hard life though, man. And you have to, this better than anybody, you have to be committed to it though, right? And so if you're not prepared to pay the price, you'll wash out. It's just that simple, And the one thing I'll say about your podcast that I absolutely love is hearing the journeys, man. I mean, you've had such an eclectic mix of people on your show, from the arts and baseball. I mean, Bonnie Hunt was one of my favorites, and Joe Mantegna. But then you got Don Kessinger, Billy, and Randy on the show. And then I was listening to Peter Conte, and then I'm thinking Peter Conte's journey compared to Pete LaCock. Like, Pete LaCock was just like, I don't want to say he's born on third base, but boy, he had a lot going for him comparatively, right? Like, just a superstar athlete, living in California, and his journey to the big leagues versus, a Don Kessinger from, Mississippi, right?
Right.
And Bonnie Hunt's journey, unbelievable. Like how she was a nurse, man. So she's a good example of what you're talking about. It didn't come to her early.
Yeah, man. You're right on with that. And Pete LaCock, at the end of the day, though, Pete LaCock worked hard, right? As much as he had this life that he didn't, he said, I worked hard. I worked harder than everyone else. And that is the key, man, at the end of the day. If you're not willing to work and sacrifice, like, this is what I'm going to do, you're right. It just doesn't happen. And I got to ask you this, the final thing here.
Sure, man.
You missed that? You didn't, like, we talk about, you had like an Earl Flynn kind of way about you. You did, man. You had that good look Irish. You still do. I'm not saying we're older now, but you know what I'm talking about. You just had that, do you wish that there was another path, or what's your take on that? Like, we all look back and say there's regret, and, what do you feel about that?
So the great thing is, one of my best friends is pursuing a career that I can follow from afar and feel a part of it, right? So here we are. So I get great joy seeing your work and what you and Christy are doing, and I enjoy it immensely. So that fills a nice part of that void. But yeah, to answer your question, of course it would have. I guess I just go back to the discussion we had earlier. It would have been nice if someone put an arm around me and said, hey, by the way, Dan, you can be a football player and you can be in the school musical. That's something that you could do, you should do. And and then what I do with it after, that's on me, right? So I guess the regret would only be that I didn't know that I could do it, right? I just presumed I could. Right, man. Well said, man. Dude, I love you, man. And Debbie, please say hello to her. She's a cool cracker jack. She is. Thank you for that, man. And Ryan and Julia, dude, you're a dear friend, and thanks for being on. And just love our evolution of our friendship, man. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. I love you and Christy, and wish you guys the best with season 2. Love you, pal. Bye, pal. I'll talk to you soon. Right, take care. See you, brother. Bye.
Man, I haven't talked about the 25th man in years. That was cool talking to Dan. Woo! Goes back many, many years. It seems like another time. And great having Peter Conte on the show. I mean,
great having both of them.
Yeah, it was just perfect. And Peter did mention about Wild Ones. Yeah,
which we'll be directing together.
Yeah, that'll be something. I'm looking so forward to that, because you are so gifted visually and with the written word. I just can't wait to do that together.
I'm excited to get my hands dirty in that.
Yeah, it's going to be something, and it's going to be a cool art film, and something that brings all the years of the experience in both of our lives. And I'm really looking forward to that, and also getting Blue Collar Famous going with Bonnie Hunt. So stay tuned. During the winter too, we might have a couple of live feeds, right?
We are thinking about doing a couple of live streams.
Yeah.
So stay tuned to our Patreon page, because that's where they will be happening, as well as when you sign up, you can sign up for free, or you can be a paid member. So you can get notified when anything goes up on the Patreon if you're a free member. So just head over there and just
become a free member.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to our show and for listening all season. We really appreciate it. Special thanks to our cool Cracker Jacks: Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry Rankin-Gurovitz, Terry O'Brien, Gary Tallman, and Anne-Marie Pascule.
The show is made possible because of all of them. and all of our subscribers. If you want to support the show and be a cool Cracker Jack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page by clicking the link below this episode, or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Remember to click the follow button for next season, and please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for what you thought of this season. And thank you to our advertisers, Linda Dillman at Bernie's, Gino's Pizza, Gino's East here on Coldwater Canyon in L.A.,
Audio Suite, Tangent West,
yes,
and Brewers.
Can't wait to continue next year with everybody.
And don't hesitate to write. Give us suggestions. Tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
For my closing quote, when you're in the day-to-day grind, it just seems like it's another step along the way. But I find joy in the actual process, the journey, the work. Cal Ripken Jr.
Toodaloo.